Alright, Trial Mob, welcome back to another TBG feature, and today we're going to be talking about Corvus Belli's Infinity the Game. Now, as you know, Joytoy has announced their very first figures, and we're going to get into them at some point, but I wanted to break down the story of Infinity the Game so you guys can understand a little bit more about it, because I realize a lot of people don't know anything about this, so I just wanted to explain some of the factions, some of the story, just so that you understand kind of where the universe is as of right now, because it's very, very, very important for a lot of us to get that, as that's what sells us most on the game. So before we do any other kind of figure breakdown, let's first break down the story. So Infinity the Game, what is it about? So basically, on a large scale, the human sphere started to expand, and they wanted to expand into the stars. Think Elon Musk and Tesla, right? But they actually found a wormhole and a way to actually fast travel to other parts of the universe. Now, the greater governments at the time, the same that mirror what we have today, the United States, China, Russia, all of those, basically got together to put two ships together to send through that wormhole in order to get to to the other side of that wormhole, right? To try to start a new civilization out there. It basically was sort of an arms technology human type race that they had going on, but it was all together. So in the waning years of the United States' control over the world, which sounds a lot like today, they were able to get this to go all together. They got the two ships, and they're able to successfully send one of them through that wormhole. It was called the Ariadna. Now, this is very important to the Joytoy releases that we're about to talk about, but to make sure that everybody understands kind of what happened here. So that initial Ariadna ship that made it through the wormhole, basically the wormhole collapsed behind it, causing us to lose that ship, while the other ship obviously didn't make it through, and this bankrupted many of the current powers that exist in today's real life. Now, because of that, basically there was a splintering of the world powers, where China went for a bull rush and picked up a lot of other little countries, and some of the other big countries trying to resist that ended up joining forces together to create different factions. So we got all these new different factions from the Infinity Game that we see today. Now, fast forward about, I believe, 150 years, these guys have now all become technologically advanced and found stable wormholes by which they were able to expand through the universe, right? So they've populated different places, different planets, different spheres, and they are kind of an intergalactic, kind of think Gundam, right? Where there's multiple different federations and republics and things like that, and they control several different planets, different spheres. Everything that you can think of exists out there, including the fact that they've come into contact with other alien races. Now, this is very important to note, as basically there's been an advancement from all sides. Now, again, fast forward that 150 years, and there is basically a quiet ceasefire. None of the factions fight each other in full-on battles. What they do is that they send out small contingency forces that are specialized to fight each other. And this is so that the greater populace believes that there is a peace that really isn't actually that real, right? Because all of these factions, all of these governments, they're still fighting, but it's at a smaller scale, more quiet, more operative-like. And that is something that has sparked huge popularity in Infinity the Game, and what I honestly believe made Warhammer start bringing out all of their specialized, the warband stuff and all that kind of smaller scale battles, where you could buy a set of 5 to 6 characters to fight another set of 5 to 6 characters. And I think that that's awesome. Infinity the Game has created such real competition to Warhammer 40k and Games Workshop in general, that they had to turn around and respond by making a game that basically mirrored that. So, why is this all important to the figures that we're about to go over right now? So the main portion of this is that the Ariadna ship wasn't lost. They did in fact make it to a planet. They did crash land. And then they ended up having everything that they needed to be able to continue civilization. Now, they didn't advance. They were basically stuck in the same time that they left. And they were rediscovered again by the big factions of the Earth that obviously populated the universe. And a big problem ensued because technically everybody was trying to call dibs. Almost every single major player in the game had some form of representation on that ship. So obviously everybody wanted a piece of the pie, but ultimately the greater forces, the greater governors, we could say, said that Ariadna, considering that they had continued their development and continued their own lifestyle and their own cultures and their own practices, that they were a sovereign nation on a planet that harbors incredible material that is needed for the travel of spaceships. So they're very, very, very important faction, and that is something that is very important to denote. And it's also really cool about the Ariadnans because they're all basically stuck in time. They're basically Call of Duty Modern Warfare for us, while everybody else is in Halo 3. So it's a very, very interesting concept to go over for the Infinity of the game and where they sit currently. Now, speaking directly to Joytoy and Infinity the game and what is going on here. So this is the reason why I bring up this entire topic about Ariadna and the Ariadnans, is that basically these are soldiers from that faction. And I think that this was the right decision by Joytoy to do this. And I really appreciate that we're getting these guys first. We're not getting the Space Marines. We're not getting some giant figures that are going to be out of scale. We're not getting some crazy faction no one knows about. I heard that a lot of people were kind of complaining that these guys seem rather dull in a sense, but I think that this is the right move. People don't know enough about Infinity the game. People don't know enough about, they don't know the lore. Chances are the video you just saw a second ago was the first time that you've been introduced to anything about Infinity the game. So it's very important to denote that these guys are basically the Cadians of the Infinity game, basically. Now, here's something I wanted to denote to you guys before we get into any of the breakdowns. As you'll tell, these guys are the exact same 4 guys we just saw in the last photo, but the difference is these guys are green, and the other guys that we're actually getting in toy form are brown colored, basically sand colored. I searched the internet and I could not find that color scheme. I really kind of wish we were getting this color scheme, this green color scheme, but it doesn't seem that we'll be getting it anytime soon, or at least in a later release. Does that mean that these figures aren't lore accurate? No, I don't think that's the case. I think they are probably lore accurate. The Ariadnans obviously landed on a planet that had all 4 seasons, and there probably is desert portions, there probably is more green foresty portions. They probably all exist. So more than likely, the figures that we are going to be breaking into are exactly what they're supposed to be. My only thing is, I do believe that this is proof that we are getting, or at least soon we will be getting, the Cadian troopers from the Warhammer 40k series. Because think about it. Infinity the game could have 100% have given us these guys right here instead of the brown, sand colored figures that we are getting. And I do believe that if you just take a look at this at first glance, they really do look like Cadians. And I think the reason why Joytoy decided not to do that is that they're more than likely going to come out with regular Cadian troopers, and they don't want to be coming out with both of these almost simultaneously because they look too much alike. But at the same time, this is why it's so important. I think that Joytoy should have started with the Cadian troopers and then worked their way up, gotten more funds, seen how their figures were going to sell, and then continue from there. But here, instead, since they've already kind of had a chance to do that, and Corvus Belli is obviously a smaller company, there's probably more funds to be available for them to do things. They are starting from the right place, which is the Grunt Soldier. And not just any Grunt Soldier, the Grunt Soldiers, right? The guys from the, Call of Duty faction, not the Halo faction. And I think that was the right move. Now we're going to go ahead and break it down now. So these guys are known as the Armada 2 Project. That's basically the faction name. And here we have the heavy shotgun Ratnik. Now I'll tell you right now, I was able to find photos of this guy as a miniature in this color scheme. So that right there just proves to me again that this is lore accurate, that there are factions that have these colors. And don't forget that because we're getting them in a different color, eventually I'm sure we'll get them in that green Cadian style color, and they'll probably be even cheaper because of course as we get these released more than once, we basically end up with a nicer price point because every reuse basically is cheaper for them to put together. Now, this is an incredible way to start a faction. We have multiple infantry and a mech to go with it. I haven't seen any photos of how this guy stacks up, but I have seen a few artwork photos, and it looks like the regular Marauder troopers are supposed to be more or less to that first red bar at the bottom of the chest, to potentially to the top bar on the center of that chest. So this guy is definitely a lot larger than your average figure, but he's not necessarily a giant figure either. But he looks great. I love all the armaments that he comes with himself. They really pack this guy with a lot of things. We're going to break that down right now. Here's a few close-ups of what he's coming with. So obviously we have that head that's right behind that armor-plated chest, the missile launchers that come on both shoulders, the shotgun that he comes with, at least it looks like a shotgun, the leg design, really, really good-looking stuff here. I do believe the overall design is fairly menacing, and I'm not quite sure, but I remember seeing a photo where only one of the shoulders had the missile launchers, so this is something that could probably be very modularized. Now, of course, this guy looks like a total beast, and as you can tell, there is a lot of detail front to back. Joytoy never skimps, and I really appreciate that. This also gives us a good idea of what articulation is going to look like, especially from behind, because we get to see the joints a little bit better. I believe both the knees and the elbows will probably make it to about 90 degrees, and you'll probably be able to get decent posing out of those hips. So we'll have to see once we have this in person. Now, poses. Obviously, poses are always going to make things look a lot better. I love this because this is most likely how I would have it in my D12 shelf if I do end up getting this figure. Shotgun pointed back, hammer in the other arm. This guy really reminds me a lot of Reinhardt from Overwatch. Now, again, here we get to see a little bit of that articulation. As I said, it looks like you can get him more or less. Those hips actually do go pretty far. If you think about it, that looks like it's almost 90 degrees at the hips. And if you can go 90 degrees at the elbows, you really get everything you need out of this guy. The hammer looks great, and the fact that he can hold it, what looks like fairly comfortably in both hands, is incredible. There was something that I don't think you can do with some of the other Joytoy mid-sized sort of armored mech looking dudes. I don't think that they can do this all that well. Now, if a shotgun and a giant hammer and missiles wasn't enough, he also comes with what looks like a absolutely badass revolver. I don't know if it is a revolver. It's probably some kind of energy weapon, to be honest, but regardless, I think it's a cool piece to add. It's just like Commander Shadow Sun that we got here with the Tau, so I appreciate what they're giving us here. Now, of course, we have to show what he comes with all together. So as you can see here, multiple hands. It looks like at least 3 pairs, 2 guns, the hammer, the body itself. As you can tell, that hammer is huge. I wouldn't be surprised if it's as tall or taller than one of the Marauder troopers. So we're going to have to take a look at those next. Now, it was a little bit difficult for me to get these guys in order, so that's going to say Unit 4, I think 2, then 1, then 3. Anyways, this is the Marauder Rangers Unit 4. Again, these are the Armada 2 project, so again, this could be a different... I don't want to say a different faction within the faction, but just a different kind of unit within the faction. This guy is a little bit more of their standard. Actually, I think this is their sniper. Let's take a look at his gun. So, yes, of course, this is actually their... I don't know if this is necessarily a sniper or more of a sharpshooter type weapon, considering the size. I would say it's a sniper-like gun. And I do like the fact that out of all of them, he's the only one that has these different kind of scopes, basically on his eyes. Different kind of goggles that he's wearing. The rest of them kind of have these orange regular like eyeglass protectors, but this right here is actual like tactical eyewear, so I think it's a really cool look overall. Now here we are treated to some of the things that we get to see here. So that's a closer look at the eyeballs, or should I say the, I don't know if these are supposed to be night vision, infrared, who knows what they are, but I like the fact that there's 3 of them and it does look pretty cool, almost alien-like. And a closer look at some of the armor. Usually on those pauldrons in the top right, they're supposed to be the insignia of their faction, so I'm not quite sure if this is 100% correct, but I'm pretty sure if you're a customizer, you're just going to add it on yourself. Now, I think that these guys look really nice. Regardless of the color scheme, I think that they look really bulky. The bodies under them seem to fit the armor very well. They don't look undersized on big armor. The gun itself, I think, looks really dope, man. It's a sharpshooter sniper-like weapon. I think that they knocked it out of the park with the overall aesthetic of this guy. Of course, standing at ease, this is exactly how I'm going to have this guy standing on my D12 shelf, and he looks good. Now, articulation is obviously very important, and it's hard to denote what's going to be any of the limitations on these guys, but as far as I can tell, Money Shot right here, he can aim down sight, and it looks like he can aim perfectly. As you can tell, the eyes are lined up with the scope, and he seems to be able to shoulder it with both hands where they're supposed to be on the weapon, so I think this is an A+ right here. Now, on top of also coming with the binocular, well, the, I don't know what you would call them again, but the eyesight that he comes with, he also seems to come with binoculars as well. So that's actually a really cool little extra plus that comes with him. Again, this guy is supposed to be a Pathfinder, Ranger type thing, so I love it. Now, of course, this right here is where I really feel Infinity is, or should I say Joytoy, is really starting to pull my respect for these figures. So obviously he comes with a sidearm, a pistol. He also comes with a knife. These Money Shots are really nice. But again, the fact that he already comes with a really cool looking gun. They gave him a sidearm. On top of that, now he has a knife. He even comes with binoculars. You know, he comes with a headpiece that's a little different from the rest of the guys. I mean, this is really good stuff coming from Joytoy right now. Unlike some of the previous Warhammer stuff that we've gotten, I kind of can't help but to feel that you're getting a lot out of these guys. This looks and feels a bit more like what Joytoy normally gives us. You know, armor that comes off completely, multiple different weapons, multiple different choices, multiple hands. And yeah, we do get a lot of that in some of the Warhammer stuff, but I just feel like it's extra on display right now with Infinity, the game. Now, Unit Ranger, or should I say Marauder Ranger Unit 1. Okay, so this guy is a bit more of the close combat guy. He's got a shotgun, and I think he's the only one whose face is shown. I think maybe there's one other one whose face is shown. So that's this guy right here, and the other guy, but we'll get to that in a second. I don't notice any immediate difference between this figure and the last figure. I want to say that they're almost identical. Not a problem, as you can tell from the other body what it can do. Obviously, this is going to be a good buck overall to use across the board. Here's a little quick close-up if you want to go ahead and pause and take a look. Now, considering that this is a shotgun, you don't necessarily have to aim down sight, but you can hold it with both hands and bring it up pretty high up. What I'm not certain of is whether or not that gray collared armor gets in the way of being able to bring up the arms higher than they are here. With this gun, it matters more because with some of the other assault rifles and things, those scopes kind of come up higher so you can line them up with the eyes better. But as you can tell here, for some reason, it's not as high as I feel it should be. So we'll find out when we have this in person whether or not that's an issue. Now, I really have to give it up to Joytoy for making these guys just look really damn solid just standing there. You know, at an at ease position, this is exactly how he's going to be at my detolf shelf. And again, just like the other one, great stuff. Now, of course, in continuing of the theme, pistol and knife, this guy comes with both of them. And again, articulation doesn't seem to be an issue. I feel like you can tell, though, if you look right there on the gun hand, the gun arm, it does look like that upper shoulder piece. As you bring it up, you're going to have to kind of swivel it out. So just something to note for when you have this figure in person. Now, again, money shot, money shot, money shot. This right here is very important. Okay, so we know that these guys can aim down sight, and now we know without a doubt that they are able to kneel into position. These are the very two most important things you need out of these figures. Can he aim down sight? Can you have him kneeling? And of course, if there's an extra layer that he can have in terms of articulation, of course it is, can they go prone and still kind of aim down sight? So of course they're not going to show us that here. That's something that I'm going to have to show you guys in a review. But the two most important things, can he kneel? Yes, he can, and that means all of them can. Can he aim down sight? Yes, he can. That means all of them can as well. So just off of those two things, already I can tell you this is basically a must-buy, especially considering that these are their regular soldiers. This is a very, very well put together figure that can already do exactly what you want. My only fear is that it looks like there is a little bit in that knee that doesn't touch the floor. So that's my only, I think, reservation. But as you can tell, in a standing action pose, it's still a really good looking figure. Now, of course, he does come stacked with everything that you see here. Multiple hands. This one seems to come with a little bit less, but shotguns, knives, pistols, and all the other packs you see on him. Now, here we have unit number 3. So this guy is the heavy, basically the rocket guy, the rocket launcher guy, demolitions guy. Obviously really cool looking. You always want to have those heavies for the bigger, for the other team's Ratnik. So this is pretty cool. Now, this right here is pretty standard fare. If you want to go ahead and pause it and take a look to see some of the differences, I'll leave this right here for a second. Again, a few more close-ups here. Everything looks pretty solid. Everything looks pretty good. I really can't tell if there's too much of a difference between this face and the other face that's basically unmasked. I do believe that the eyes are a little bit different, so you'll have to go ahead and take a look at that. Obviously, that bazooka or rocket launcher, whatever you want to call it, looks absolutely massive. I think that it overall is a great aesthetic. Again, all of these guys are basically identical. The only difference that they share is the kind of weapon that they have. So this guy's going to look as good as the others. I actually kind of find it funny that they try to make this guy look a bit more dynamic in the photography. But I mean, really, what can you do with a rocket launcher other than make him kind of hold it in the same way 5 different ways? Now, of course, the main thing here is, can he aim down sight? It's kind of hard to tell where the, I guess, sight is supposed to be. I guess is that red part above. It looks a little too high. If that's where he's supposed to be aiming down, it looks like his eyes are a little bit lower than that. So I don't know how perfect this is or isn't, but I will tell you that this does look pretty solid, and it gives us a good idea of how far the arms go. They at least go to 90 degrees, and from what I can tell, it still looks like the arm can bend a little bit more at the elbow. But this looks great, man. This definitely looks like something that is kind of weirdly modern, but also weirdly futuristic, and I do appreciate that a lot. Now, pretty cool, this guy also seems to come with one of those binoculars that the sniper comes with, so that is kind of a cool thing for him to come with, as I imagine he'd be looking for the anti-tank, or I shouldn't say the anti-tank, but the tanks and the heavy troopers. Now, this right here is where my respect gets won absolutely to the top, man. It's absolutely badass that not only do we get a heavy weapons demolition style RPG for this guy, but if you don't want that, if you don't want that to be the only gun he comes with, guess what? They give you an LMG to go with him, and it looks incredible. The different colors that we see here, the belt-fed box magazine that's right there. I mean, there's a lot of detail in that gun, almost enough to give PGV a run for its own money. So this right here is the money shot for me, to know that they are packing in just so much to some of these figures. It's a really, really big deal to see Joytoy giving you a lot for what hopefully won't be too big of a premium. Now, of course, here you can see everything that he comes with. So he still comes with the same knife and pistol combo that everybody else comes with. He comes with the binoculars, multiple hands, the big RPG, the big LMG. I mean, there's a lot going on with this guy right here. If I could only choose one, it'd probably be between this guy and the sniper as my two favorite ones. But I really appreciate how heavy in the content this guy is. And of course, remember that even if these guys come out a little bit on the premium side, right? Maybe we get them all one at a time instead of in a 4-pack, which it seems like that's what's going to be the case. Let's pretend that they're $40 figures. By the time we get the regular Cadian looking ones, they're going to drop down to $35, $30 maybe. So these, even if they are a little bit expensive now, just understand that as we get these guys over and over again in different color sets, at least one other color set, the pricing will go down, and it will be very much so a value-packed option. Now, we're going to top it all off right here with the Ranger Unit 2. This is a very important figure, and I'm going to explain to you guys why this one is the most important one out of all 4 of these. So why exactly is this probably the most important figure for Infinity, or should I say for Joytoy and its Infinity line? So to begin with, this is the most important figure. Why? He's got no face, right? It's goggled up. He can be any number of different characters. You can have multiple of these guys. He comes with probably the most common assault rifle that they use. He comes with a pistol, and it doesn't look like he comes with a knife. So there's something that's a little bit different right there. But in terms of just your general normal figure that you would probably army build a bunch of them, right? You're probably going to buy one of the RPG guy, one of the shotgun guy, one of the sniper guy, and probably 4 or 5 of these guys. So I think it's very important that we are going to hopefully get these in one piece, just one figure a pop, and that hopefully the price will be cheap enough to warrant getting multiple of these, because this is probably what I would do. I would probably end up getting multiple of these guys, and if I had to choose only one, as I mentioned, I'd probably go with the LMG guy, but I really appreciate the fact that, Joytoy, thinks about this and has been getting better at this, and that is trying to separate these guys to be sold, in single units, and then, of course, to make it at a price point that people can buy multiple of these. So I'm not quite sure, again, what the price point is going to be for these guys. It's hard to tell. But do consider that I imagine that Games Workshop, Warhammer 40K, that probably cost a pretty penny to get involved with. And Infinity the game, for everything that it is, it's still way smaller than Games Workshop. So to be able to get that licensing, it's probably a lot cheaper. And this is also a really good opportunity for Infinity the game to get a lot of, a lot more mainstream success, because you could say that, wow, Warhammer 40K is getting these 1/18 scale stuff. Of course they are. It's Warhammer. But Infinity the game, being as small as it is, it's basically giving them another arena by which they can stand next to Warhammer. Now, obviously, they have a lot less fans, but at the same time, there's a lot more going on here. One of the single biggest benefits that basically Infinity the game has is that there is no predispositioned. I don't want to say that there's not lore. Obviously, there's plenty of lore, but none of it's necessarily been, put into a bunch of books and a bunch of comics and lore that goes back 30 years where I could say, oh, well, these Gen 1 guys are supposed to be one size and these Gen 2 guys are completely out of scale. And that's something that's polarized the community with everything that's been coming out, where a lot of things don't match up in scale. Some of them do look good, but some of them are a little too tall. Some of them do look good, but, they don't articulate very well. So there's just a lot of things going on with Warhammer 40K that makes it a caveat. While I feel this is much more free from that. You're much more free from all of those restrictions. Nobody knows enough about Infinity the game. Nobody knows enough about the lore or the size of the figures. And as long as everything looks more or less correct, everyone's just going to assume it is, because there's not a lot to pull from to say whether or not the figures are correctly sized. And if you're going by just the miniatures, then most likely that is exactly what Joytoy is going from. So these are going to be perfectly sized no matter what you do. And again, I'm really happy that we're coming out with regular human characters first, not any weirdly scaled figures. This is the basis for a 6-foot tall human character from the jump. That is a blessing to be dealing with from the jump. All they can do from here is go a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller with anything that comes out, but all of it is going to basically be based around this height, this size. So again, I really appreciate the fact that we're getting that in this case, and that of course, again, we are getting a figure that ultimately, which I'm noticing here in the photo, by the way, does come with a knife. The sheath is just up by the abdomen instead of down by the leg. But again, I think that is something that's very important, because again, you need to have an army builder. And yes, these are army builders. And yes, you can probably buy 1 or 2 of all of these guys. But this guy specifically, in a squad, you're not going to have 4 LMGs in a squad unless that's what you really want to do. But you could buy, let's say, at least 2 of that guy, because you can get 1 RPG guy and 1 LMG guy. But this guy right here, you can buy 3, 4, 5, 10. Do you want an army of 10 of these guys? And you can. And it technically would look perfectly fine in a large squad. I mean, these are what you want to do with these characters. But again, I do find it important that Joytoy stresses to, again, if they want their lines to succeed or they want them to do good, it's important for them to stress single carded figures that are as cheap as possible to be able to also be army builded, right? If this guy had a specific face like Gregson or something from the other Joytoy stuff that we get, you're not going to buy multiple of Gregson unless you have multiple heads by which to pass them out for. But this guy right here, you don't need that. Buy 20 of these guys. They could be Jim, John, Joe, and Bill, and it doesn't matter, because they don't have a face and they're just a regular soldier. So again, love what I'm seeing here. Alright, Chara Mob, so there you have it, a full breakdown of everything that we're getting from the Joytoy Infinity the game releases. These are really, really nice. I think that while simplistic, I do believe that this is the right way to start off Infinity the game. I think that Joytoy has learned a lot and is going to be able to bring a lot of that expertise basically from the very, very jump of this line, and they're showing it here. So I'm really hoping that this is going to go very far. I am an Infinity the game enthusiast. I would say to some degree I am. I've always wanted to get into it. If you guys want to see more lore videos as well, let me know. I might put some more stuff together for you guys. If you guys want to know more about these guys, I can try to break it down for you. But yeah, let me know what you guys are looking forward to seeing from this channel. Let me know what you guys are looking forward to seeing from Joytoy and its future releases. And let me know how I can bring more content to you guys might want to take a look at, alright? But until then, I will catch you guys on the next release. Deuces.